I'd love to start with a quote from your Substack from yesterday. It says, when life strips you of most of the things you've worked so hard to keep, there is a shattering that occurs within, a whittling down, so to speak. The way I see it, you can let yourself dwindle into a small, insignificant splinter, or you can allow yourself to be sharpened into a fine point. What did you mean by that?
Perspective. It's perspective for me. It's like I can look at this thing that is like this just giant ball of adversity, this giant trial that I'm being confronted with, and I can let it splinter me so that I'm only a teeny little fraction of what I used to be, or I can allow it to sharpen me fully. So remaining intact, myself remaining intact, but where now I'm sharpened to a fine point. So I didn't lose any parts of myself. And that's something that that takes work. It takes practice. A lot of times I'll find myself, I wouldn't say enjoying feeling miserable, but it's familiar. So I go, oh, this is easier and harder at the same time, but it's easier but worse. And so when I can change my perspective and go, just observe, like, look at this, like you're going through this thing, you can't change it. So look at it, accept it, and then what do you want to make this? Like, what do you want to like form out of this trial that you're facing? And that's where you get to be sharpened to a fine point. You're like, you know what? Joke's on you, life. You can throw what you want at me, but I'm going to use it and make sure it means something to help someone else.
For the audience's benefit, like how would you describe like the shedding of what you're going through right now? I kind of like put your Substack post like into words that the audience can understand.
Like over the years, I've my life has completely changed over the past few years, and I'd read all these self-help books, right? I'm very interested in people's stories. I'm literally in an industry where we tell stories about other people. Um, and I would read these I don't know if I even would call them self-help books. It's just stories, right? Like somebody's life, how they've overcome something and what they've learned, and they want to share it with you. And I thought that's so interesting. However, I've never seen somebody write a book when they're in the middle of the adversity spiral. It's always in hindsight. And I thought with my Substack, I thought I needed something to do. I've been struggling because when I don't have an outlet to where I can help somebody, or like I'm so used to acting, right? So I can channel my emotions there and process and get that out, and then I'll work out and I get them out there. And then I thought I want to be able to help somebody. And then I thought there's this great term, I guess, phrase that I learned from certain friends, and it's like, I feel like I've been stuck in this hallway of my life for a few years. And I try to like force some of the doors in the hallway open, and they're just bolted shut and I can't get them open. I'm not, at the time, was not seeing the fact that there are several doors in the hallway. I was just very hyper focused on like two or three, and they weren't opening. And instead of going, okay, let me try another door, I was like getting, hammers and like sledgehammers to knock the doors down, and it wasn't working, right? That's how I was understanding it. And so I thought, what if my friend Cassandra's like, you're a really good writer. You should write. You should say what's on your mind. She's like, you always help our group of friends when we need you. And like, what if you did that for more people? And I do that more quietly in my own life with different charities that I'm affiliated with. And I like to volunteer where I can. But I liked this idea. So I said, yeah, okay. And I was like, and I was talking to her about like being in this hallway, and just being like, I've been so frustrated for so many years now. And she was like, well, I said, what if I called it like in the hallway? Like, cause that's where I am. I'm in the middle of an enormous shift in my life, and I'm not using so much of like I haven't gotten through it yet. I'm still in it. And so I decided to create this Substack and write about things in real time that have been happening to me. And so every article I write I don't write like 5 of them and save them to post later. I mean, they're like last minute articles about something that happened to me that day, which was the last one I wrote, or it would be like something that happened to me 2 days ago. It's very like in the moment. Because I find that it's real easy to read someone's story once they've gotten to the other side and they're making money from it and they're doing well and everything is just easier. And it's good because it's good for me to see, oh, there's something on the other side of this probably, But I think it's for me, I wasn't finding as much comfort in that as I found when I would go and volunteer at these shelters or with certain people that are in the middle of a shitstorm and talking with them. I would immediately feel the weight taken off my own shoulders. And I thought, I'm going to try to do that for other people. Um, and I can talk more about, where I'm at in my life if you want, and like the shedding that has happened. Is that what you want to hear? Okay. Um, so I, over the last few years, so when I ended this show called Blindspot that I was on for 5 years, um, my body was pretty destroyed physically. It was it was like the best way I can describe it, and actually some of the producers and folks on the show would say this to me. They're like, "You have literally been sprinting a marathon for 5 years," and I was like, "I know." Broken a lot of bones and concussions, and I have screws in my left leg, and just all kinds of stuff now. But you know what? It is what it is. And I needed to stop. I like didn't love acting anymore. I was just like, oh, I need this crazy freight train to stop. And I wasn't feeling mentally well at all. And then COVID happened like right when we finished the show. And I thought to myself, oh my God, just kind of like, whoa, super fortunate to have a lot in my savings account when that happened, though. I will say that there's plenty of great things that came from me being on a series for so long. Um, and so I just was like, well, I'm going to quit. And so, but I was contracted to do 3 movies during COVID. So it was like, well, once I do those, then I'm going to stop. And one of those being Thor, Love and Thunder, which my role got significantly cut, which at the time really pissed me off because I was like, I signed up for this because you guys told me that I was one of the 4 leads, and then you changed it all of a sudden, and now I'm a cameo with like a scene and a half or 2 scenes, and I was like, that's not what I signed up for. And I was really upset. But looking back, had I done half the stunts they had written for me, like had my character fought the God Butcher on horseback and like this whole thing that Christian Bale and I really wanted to do, by the way, we were bummed that it didn't happen, but I could have been severely injured. Like I was not strong enough and well enough to be doing that kind of material, like that kind of action. Um, so in a way, it probably saved me a lot of pain. I mean, geez, I could have been paralyzed. Something bad could have happened. So I can always see the light when things don't go my way. I've sort of now have gone through enough where I have that perspective, which is nice. So after all those movies were done, again, super fortunate to have a job in COVID during that time, during the shutdown. I came out of that and I was like, I have to stop. Like, I don't feel good. I had, in 2018, I suffered a burst appendix, which I had entered sepsis due to that and almost lost my life. And we can talk about that at some point if you want. But I got out of there and I had a lot of health issues from the sepsis. And so they were really on like hyperspeed at this time because I wasn't resting and I was stressed about the world. I mean, geez, it was a tough time, and I was like, I quit. I got to stop. And then I quit long enough. I changed my team, my agents and managers, which I found necessary at the time. And my weight was up by 20 pounds. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was almost agoraphobic. I was severely depressed, but didn't know what that was exactly. Like, just couldn't figure out why I was so sad and uncomfortable and unhappy and physically like unwell. And so I started seeing a couple different doctors and found some issues that I've been able to correct with, medication and just like thyroid medication and other things. Uh, and I'm on the other side of that, which is really wonderful now. But I had to quit acting. I had to quit my job. I was like, I don't like doing this anymore. I don't know what I can do. I mean, I've always been an actor, but like, I gotta stop this. And then as the time went on, I was living off my savings, and I was like, I got to take a job. A couple years after quitting, I was like, I got to do something, and then the strike happened. So I was like, oh. I was like, this was not a good time to try to get back in the game. But so that happened. And then I was like, oh, and then for whatever reason, I stopped getting offers for films and television and everything. Like everything just went away. Like it was, it felt like it happened overnight. It was like, oh, almost like you quit. So, oh, excuse me. Is that okay to curse on your podcast? Okay. Pardon me. And so I just was like, oh God, and so I thought, okay, okay, okay. Just, keep doing what you're doing. So I started working out a ton and powerlifting and doing all this crazy stuff to sort of, I think, do something good for myself, but also it was like I needed something to do on the daily, like a structure or a job in that sense. Kept going on like this. I would audition for something or meet for something, and I was either the wrong ethnicity, which would happen often, or I was too old, too young, or I looked too young, but I'm older, and whatever it was, right? It was like, she's a giant, she's way too tall for this, or the height requirement is 5'4" and under, I'm 5'9", and it would just be like all these weird little things that I couldn't change. And I thought, well, okay. And then I started getting afraid because the thing is with Blindspot, I unfortunately, even though I was what the show was centered around, I was billed second to my male co-star, and I didn't ever get a back end deal on the show. So he gets all the back end money from Netflix picking up the show or whatever. I get nothing. So that was, and of course, this all these deals were made before the Me Too movement, and it just was what it was. And I tried to fight it and it didn't work out. I was also paid a lot less than he was. Eventually, I fought for equal billing and equal pay. I don't know if I actually got equal pay, but that's what they said I was getting. And so these things, it is what it is. I'm certainly not complaining about it, just kind of laying the landscape a little bit. And so I started selling most of what I owned. I just was like, I got to get rid of everything. I have to downgrade my lifestyle because I'm not getting work and I don't know what else I want to do. And I was sort of forced into this level of humility, but in a good way. Like I didn't see it as a good thing at first. I was like, oh my God, I lost my home. And the thing is, like, I financially support two family members of mine and own their house. And that is always going to be my priority. I've chosen that. And where I live and what I have is just second to that. Like that's how I decided to live my life. So I got rid of everything. And as I was getting rid of things and downgrading my lifestyle, and I live in a studio apartment now in New York, and I've became happier, which is not what I was expecting. And I think the reason I did was because I was being stripped of everything that I equated with safety, everything that I thought made me Jaimie Alexander, and I'm an actress, and da da da, like fancy clothes and whatever else, I started to become more myself. And I was like, this I could not have done on my own. I needed to be forcibly stripped of just about everything so that I don't have to carry this mask that I've been carrying for so many years. Like I have told myself in the past, you're too stupid to be a writer. You didn't do well in school. You can't do this. You can't do that. You're an actor. You can't talk about that. You can't, who's going to buy a show you wrote? Like who's going to, and I had to go like, F you to myself and be like, why can't I? And that's when I actually learned how to swim like 7 or 8 weeks ago, because I was afraid of it and I didn't know how to swim growing up. And then, of course, I met our mutual friend, Hillary Phelps, who is clearly like one of the best swimmers in the world. And, got her to swim with me once when I was visiting her recently. And I just thought like, now things are flowing and they're not flowing in a direction I thought they would be flowing. This is not where I thought I would be at 41. And that's okay. Like I am more than okay. And now to wrap up this like um, lay of the land here, I have found that uh, more than anything, I am really curious. I realize that that's all I have to be is super curious. Like when something happens, I don't really need to judge it. I don't really know if it's good or bad because most of the things I thought were bad at the time ended up being like the best things in my life that have ever happened to me. And they've led me to greater, greater, greater things. But I realized all I got to do is take a breath, pause, and just go, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm really curious and I hope I get to find out. And I started doing that and my life has progressed. Now I'm writing this Substack and I'm hoping that it's helping people. That was my main goal. I'm talking to you. I've done a few other podcasts, which I had never done podcasts in my life. And we're talking about this thing. So now I'm starting to go, oh, I took that and I'm making it mean something. And that's the point, I think, for me specifically, is like, I don't think I was put here to just be on in film and television. I think I was put here to help people. And that's going to change, I think, as I go. It's the modality of helping people that it's going to shift, I think, and I'm going to show up, and be ready for the ride.
You've been through so much, and I think that one of the like unseen gifts that comes with stuff like this is like what you just described, your ability to give back and to relate to people at such a deep level and help people on a in a bigger way than you ever thought you could. Right. And I think it's really hard for people to see that in the midst of the storm. Right. Because in the storm, it's like tunnel vision. All you're focused on is how can I survive? How can I get through this problem? My life sucks. No one likes me. No one wants me, me. Right. And I think it's really impressive that you've been able to objectively look at this and say, hey, like, two things can be true. Like, my life right now is maybe not where I want it to be, where I had envisioned it to be. But here's what I'm doing to take back control and not letting my inner world like run the narrative of my life. And I know this all kind of started for you, with your first post where you talked about ending up in the hospital for the appendix, and that led to you getting sober. For people who maybe like didn't see your first Substack post or missed like the massive amount of media attention that got afterwards, like talk about that incident and how that led you to getting sober.
Sure. Well, I will say, because I've sort of taken myself out of the actress spotlight for so long, or I thought I did. I forget that I'm still a public person. So when I wrote my story, I did not think, and also on Substack, I didn't write it for People Magazine or anything like that, but I didn't realize that it would get so much attention and just kind of go everywhere. And that's okay. Like, I was prepared to, what I put out there is like, I'm comfortable with what I put out there, or I wouldn't be doing it. So what happened was, I think it was season 3 of Blindspot, and I had gotten the shit kicked out of me for so long. I mean, I was a train wreck of a person physically. I just could not. I was always in pain. I never slept. I never had a day off. Eventually, they started giving me like half days and a couple days off, but that was due to like the fact that I had to have knee surgery and was in a wheelchair. So that was later. But I went to work. So basically, what happened was I met this guy. Now I'll tell you something. This is really crazy. So this is why I pay attention to things that are like synchronistic in my life. Like, I really, when things repeat or they show up in ways that are almost miraculous, I can't ignore it, because it'll happen in a sequence that I cannot block out. Like, I cannot not see it. So there was a person that I ended up dating for a short time, that I was one day at work on Blindspot, and I was looking through all this like fake paperwork. Like, my character was supposed to be like faking that she was like an office person at the FBI and not like some crazy, militant ass kicker. And so they go, Jaimie, you get to sit down. Now, I never got to sit down in a scene ever. I don't know if if you've watched the show, you'll notice I'm standing usually, unless it's like the last season or 2 seasons, I'm seated. But so I was like, oh, I get to sit down, and I'm like going through this, paperwork that's fake. And I come across a mugshot of a guy I recognize. And I'm like, wait a second, why is this guy's face in here? And then I put it up on my Instagram to be funny. And then he came across my path in another way, again, not in person, but I was like, oh, that's so weird. There's that person again. And then I wanted to get on a dating app because I just didn't know how to meet people. And a friend of mine, I had tried that Bumble app, and I got kicked off because they thought I was impersonating myself. And I was like, well, that sucks. Like, I don't know how to get around that. And so my friend, who's just like a little tech wizard, I said, can you find a way to get me on this thing? Or how do I prove it's me? And I don't know. And she was like, yeah, sure. I'll try to look into it. And so she did. One night we were having a drink, and we were at this little bar in Williamsburg. I can't remember where, but we were having a drink, and she got me logged into the app, like my account reactivated, but it ended up on her phone. And I was like, I swear on my life, if you start swiping on people, I'm going to kill you. Like, don't play any jokes on me, And so 2 days later or so, I opened my phone, and the app's on my phone, and I just clicked on it to see if, I don't know, maybe it would work. And it did. And that person popped up. He was the first person that popped up. And I was like, what's happening? And so I I clicked on him, and we ended up going on a date. And I remember sitting at the restaurant, and I had had probably 6 or 7 shots of bourbon at home before this, because I was very nervous. I was like, I haven't been on a date in like forever. And I sat down at the table with him, and he ordered an iced tea or an Arnold Palmer or something like that. And I thought, like, my first thought was like, I wish I could do that. And I was like, that's weird. I ordered a double bourbon neat anyway. And it was like the first time I didn't finish a drink. And the thing is, I had gotten to the point where I was drinking at nighttime, and it was like medication. Like I would drink a pretty generous portion of straight bourbon as fast as possible. I didn't enjoy it. I just wanted to get it in my system so that I could go to sleep. And it would kind of anesthetize the pain in my body that I had from that day's work or whatever injury I sustained that week. And I got into a bad habit of that. And so I went to work, and a week passed, and he said, I'd really like to hang out with you again, but I have to go and check out some properties upstate. It would just be a day trip if you want to take a ride with me and my dog. And he's like, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to move fast here. He's like, it's just otherwise I can't visit with you because your schedule's pretty, enormous. And so I said, okay, um, and I drank quite a bit that past night. It was like a Friday night, and I had drank quite a bit to go to sleep because I knew I had to get up early to meet this guy. And I get in his car, and he made me this like weird, really weird green protein shake thing that I was like, it was like motor oil thick. And I was like, there's no way. I was like, I will literally throw up in the car if I try to drink that right now. But I was like, thank you. That's so kind. So we go upstate, and there was a snowstorm that was going to happen, but it was scheduled we had looked at the weather, and it looked pretty mild, how they do. They'll kind of overestimate like how bad it'll be, and then it's never that bad. This one was the opposite. It was like a full-on blizzard, and we got stuck, so we had to Airbnb a place that we were nearby, and that Airbnb didn't have booze. I checked, so I was like, oh, not only am I nervous with this person I hardly know, but like I the anxiety I had, I wanted to kill it, and I used to have a flask. I used to carry a flask. It didn't have it for some reason. I don't know. I just didn't put it in my bag. I just didn't think about it. So that was day one of no alcohol. The next day we were pretty much stuck there. That was day two of no alcohol. We came back that night. I poured a drink for myself when I got in the door, and for some reason I just like could not drink it. The smell, like everything about it just made me feel kind of weird. And that's like, I would drink if I had bronchitis and the flu. And I say that because I actually did do that. Like I just thought it was like, I just noticed it was weird that I didn't drink it. So I left it on the bar cart that I had. And then the next day was Monday. I went to work. I had to be up at like 4 a.m. to get to work, and went to work, and had a day where I was eating a bunch of garbage. Like I had gotten the waffle truck for work, and like all these, I was eating like ice cream on top of a waffle with Nutella on top. And then I was eating like Twix and all this candy. It was like crazy. Like all my co-stars were like, what, we never see you eat like this, and I was like, I don't know, I just want it right now. And I was really shaky. And that night I got home, and I was just kind of feeling dizzy, and I thought, oh, you just ate so much garbage, let's work out. And my trainer at the time, we were working out. I was on a Pilates reformer, and I could not keep my balance, which was very unusual for me. Like, she's been training me for a long time in Pilates, and she was like, you don't look right. Like, you need to go to sleep. And I was like, yeah. And I'm so competitive with myself that normally I'd be like, no, I'll push through. And I knew, I was like, yeah, I feel weird. I don't know. So I went to the bar cart. That drink was still there. I poured a different one. Like I dumped it out, like it went bad or something. And I poured another one, and went to take a sip, and I literally felt my insides like contract. Like I felt ill, and I was like, whoa. And I was super dizzy. And so I just went and laid down. I don't know what it like that honestly, if you're out there and you've struggled with addiction, like that's not our norm. Like we will drink through anything or use through anything, right? And I couldn't. And I went to sleep, and the next morning I went to work and started getting these really bad stomach pains on the upper, like kind of solar plexus area of my stomach. And I just thought, oh, you ate so much crap yesterday, like this, what happens, anything that like, I just wanted a simple explanation. So I started pushing on my stomach like really hard, and ate more Tums. Like I think I ate like 5 Tums at once, which I'm sure you're not supposed to do. And then it wasn't going away. And I started to get to where it felt like pulsing or something. And then around midday, I couldn't stand up straight. And we were filming in Manhattan, luckily, which normally we were at the stage in Brooklyn. So Manhattan, of course, there's many hospitals close by, and I just didn't feel right, and the pain moved to my lower right side, and I still didn't get it. Like I had such a high tolerance for pain, and I was so used to ignoring it, that I just, told everybody, I was like, yeah, I just don't feel so good. I can't really stand up straight. And my stunt double kind of took over the scene for a minute, and then lunch happened, a lunch break. I was in my trailer and I was on the floor of my trailer and I could reach my phone and I called a producer. And I was like, I need help. I can't stand up. Like something's wrong with me. And I started getting really scared because I was like, this is not going away. I had Tums. I did all these things. Um, and I just, where the pain was, it was like lower right side. So they called a set doctor to set, and they were like, he was like, do you have ovarian cyst? Like this could be a cyst rupture. Again, if somebody that has an appendix about to burst should be like screaming bloody murder. And I just wasn't. I was like sweating. And I know that the color in my face was going because the makeup artist kept trying to put makeup on top of it. And she's like, you don't look right. I think you need to go to a hospital. Um, and the doctor was like, I said, no, I don't think I have ovarian cyst. And it just so happened that my OBGYN was like not too far from where we were filming. And they took me there instead of the hospital. And so, again, probably because I wasn't showing that I was in as much pain, but also who wants the lead of their show to like have to go to the ER and they have to shut down? I think they were just fighting a lot of things. And I went to him and he knew. He was like, you don't have a ovarian cyst. Remember he asked me like, what's your favorite food or something? And by this point I was having really bad contractions and I was like, what? And I couldn't answer. I like couldn't think of a food. It was the weirdest thing. He goes, you need to get her. He told my driver, you got to get her to the hospital now, like right now. And he said, if they don't remove her appendix within like an hour, I will do it myself. He's like, I'm going to finish, because he had women in there that were like close to giving birth. Can't just leave his patients there. But I got taken to the hospital. And by that point, it was bad. I was like, oh my God, like this is not good. And so I'm in the hospital and they can't give you anything to really shut the pain off because I was about to be put under for God only knows how long. And I actually don't remember how long the surgery took. Actually I should ask. I'm still friends with some people from the show and I should probably ask them. But I was wiped down with the orange stuff, which I think it's called betadine or something. I don't know. It's like some sterile thing that they do before they cut you open, I guess. And I was left in this little curtain area. Now, by this point, I was really scared, and this male nurse, I think his name was like Andrew or Adam, something like that. He was holding my hand, and he had just been transferred from Philadelphia. I don't know how I remember this, but I remember he looked extremely worried, and I was like, "Oh God!" It's like seeing a flight attendant look really scared during turbulence. You're like, "Oh, we're gonna die." So anyway, they left me in this curtained area for like probably 2 seconds, right? Like, I mean, everybody was moving very fast, and I knew that I was about to go through surgery, and I stopped feeling like I could not feel any pain all of a sudden. And I was like, that's weird. And the only thing I felt was like heat in my body. It sort of felt like there was like heat in my veins or something. And I heard a voice. It's to this day, like, I mean, it was the realest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And it wasn't outside of myself. It was like in my head, like kind of when you talk to yourself, except it wasn't my voice at all. I was very aware it was something else. Um, and it just said, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I immediately, right before I heard the voice, I thought to myself, I'm going to die. Like I'm dying. That's what this is. And I wasn't afraid. All of a sudden, all the fear about the surgery, everything, I just surrendered it. It like did not matter. I was like, it's okay. Like I've been so afraid of this for so long. It's okay. And then I heard the voice, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I said, my first thought was, I remember you. And my second thought was, I was right. Um, and what I mean by that was, whatever that was always with me in my childhood, because I remember I grew up in an abusive household, and I never felt like I was alone ever, until I became an adult. And so I was so joyful when I heard that voice, because I was like, I've never been alone this whole time. Like you've always been with me. And I said, I think there's something else I'm supposed to do. I think I should stay. And I still don't know what that is, right? Maybe it's this, but but it said, then you can never drink again. And I just was like, oh, that's all I have to do is just not do that. Okay. And I was so happy because I now knew what the problem was. And I was like, okay, okay, deal. And because my thought was like it'd be so much easier to just die right now. Like it felt I was so okay and I felt so much love and joy and I felt like I was everywhere at once. It was the weirdest feeling, but I just thought if you've always been there and you're going to be there and you're here now, then you're going to be there later when I die. And so I should stay here. And you're giving me a choice, which is crazy. I thought, like I got to choose. And so as soon as I said yes to no drinking, all the doctors came in. And I remember this one nurse, she was standing on my right side holding my hand as I was being wheeled into the OR and she was patting my hand. And I kept telling her, like, it's okay, it's okay. Like, I was like happy. And I'm sure they were like, or they've seen it before. I don't know. Right. Like, but I just was like, I'm going to be okay. And I got moved from the gurney to the OR table and my IV caught on something, a screw or something. I just remember looking down being like, that's not right. And the tube snapped. And so all the blood started to get sucked out of my arm instead of fluid being pushed in, which was pretty chaotic. My arm went cold and I was like, it's okay. Like, like that is weird. But I think what ended up happening was the anesthesiologist or somebody pinched the tube so my blood would stop coming out. And then a mask was placed over my face and I didn't know what was happening. It just got so chaotic so fast and I was being basically knocked out by gas or whatever that was. And I felt my lungs, like I felt my chest stop moving, like I couldn't breathe and I could feel my heart stopping. It was really weird. And so I tried to grab him with my free arm, which somebody held it down. And then I was out. And when I woke up, I felt cold, which is a good sign. And I remember the doctors telling me, like we did the best we could, we had to shift around some stuff. And she's like, but you're going to be in here for a while because there is basically sepsis in your blood. We're like pumping you out as much as possible. And you're going to be on an IV drip every 45 minutes of antibiotics. And so she said, you could be in here for a few weeks to a few months. And I was like, oh, there's going to be a lot of people that don't want to hear that. And so I was just like, no, I'm going to be okay. I kept telling her I'll get out of there. I was like, it'll be okay. And thank you for saving my life, and she was so cool. And she, like the second day, my blood was clean and they kept me there for 3 more days because it's so abnormal. And I was out on the 5th day and it was a rough recovery. I mean, my organs had shifted and so they have to go back to place. So as they move back after the air comes out of your stomach and stuff, it's pretty painful. But I knew I was like, I got to make a change here. I cannot go back on my word. Whatever that was in the hospital is why I'm still here. And so my lovely assistant changed I just remember she is the best person in the world. We're still very close. She changed my little bar cart. I remember I was on the couch with like these weird pillows. I couldn't straighten my stomach yet because it would rip the staples. And so I was like in this V position so I could see her. And she was like, she had an apron on. And I was like, what are you doing? And she changed my little bar cart area to a coffee bar. And it was the sweetest gesture. And she was like, would you like a latte? And she was pretending she was a barista. She like made it the transition that first week funny and fun. And like she took all the alcohol out of my house and gave it to the doorman and like dumped some of it down the drain, just being like, ew, this smells bad. And it was so loving. And so I eventually started asking for help and got help and have been sober ever since.
Holy crap. What a
I
story.
tried. I tried to tell it as fast as possible, but it's quite a chunk there.
There's so much there. And I mean, gosh, I mean, just it's amazing that you're alive through all of that. I mean, I think that
Yep.
in itself is like obviously a huge blessing. And everything that's happened after that, I think, is kind of just an added bonus, right? Getting sober, finding this new path for yourself, helping other people. But, thank you for being so vulnerable, and for sharing that. I guess like where I want to go with this is what's been like the hardest for you to like heal from? Has it been like the incident in the hospital, your childhood? I mean, I know you recently wrote about like relationship stuff or like recreating your identity in the world where you're not like known as Jaimie Alexander, the actress anymore. Like what's been the hardest like piece of that onion to peel back for you?
Mm. Oh, these are great questions. um, in the beginning, once Blindspot ended and, I was like, just kind of like didn't know what to do with myself. Um, I would question, I didn't know this, but like as the years went on, I would start to question why I chose to stay here. And that was a low that it would bring so much shame to me. I'd be like, I should have chosen to die. Like that's how bad I felt my life was getting. And I was like, why did I choose to stay for this? Like it, and it was this, I would then go like, there's got to be another reason. Like, because I never doubted what happened in that hospital ever. Like that was, and I think when I woke up, I remember everybody telling me that I was telling them about it. Like it was like very real. Um, and that part was the hardest for me to just the acceptance of the destruction of my identity. And that it was like a culmination of things, right? It was not being able to get another acting job very easily and living off my savings and seeing that dwindle. And then it was like in the fourth season of Blindspot, tore every ligament in my knee and had to have a major surgery so that in the fifth season of Blindspot, I had a cane the entire time and I was in the wheelchair pretty much for all 11 episodes. And I had four doubles having to be me. And then the only things that I did were the close ups. So when you watch that show, I hope it doesn't ruin it for everyone, but a lot of it is not me. A lot of it is a stunt double or an acting double or a photo double or something because I couldn't do these wide shots where I had to stand unless I was holding on to a table because my knee was still in a brace that was like from my thigh to my foot. Um, so that surgery, I believe, took the longest to heal from, the knee surgery. It was the one that was like, it carried into COVID where all the physical therapy places shut down. And so it was rough. But I think the hardest part was just accepting that this is the way my life was going. It was like I was fighting it so much. And when you fight something that it is reoccurring so often, instead of accepting it, it creates a soul fracture. And I just realized I was like, you have to look at this for what it is. What are you so afraid of? And then I just had one of these moments where I went into like a pretty bad depression for about 4 days straight, which was not usual for me. And this happened like a few months ago. And I just was like, there's got to be something else. Like, I'm not seeing it. Why can't I see why this is happening? And then once I think I was open to going like, okay, it is what it is, I started experimenting. So this is the way that I pulled myself out of this like painful, last layer of the onion before I blossom into, I don't know, I always think about that like awesome blossom at Chili's, the big onion blossom.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I went from yeah, the onion skin, like just onion off out of the market to like this big onion blossom. That's silly, I know. But I started becoming curious because I thought this is so aggressive that like I'm baffled, like I'm in awe of it because it just hasn't, like I have been forcing trying to keep being an actress because that's what I knew. But because I was doing that, I had this tunnel vision and my life was just so small because of it. And then I was like, I don't know what else I would do. I don't know what I'm good at. I didn't go to college. Like blah, blah, blah. And I just, all I really loved to do was help people. And I realized the reason I loved the acting thing, one was it's very easy for me. I'm one of those people that didn't go to school for it. And I don't know how I do it. I read something. I think I'm very empathetic. And so when I read a script, I can almost feel the character's pain or experience, even though I haven't gone through that experience myself. So that part was easy. The part I loved about it so much was going to work and seeing the people I work with every day and just being like, hey, how was your weekend? Like, what are the kids up to? How was John's birthday? Like, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that was my thing. Like, I love that. And I thought, how do you make a living at doing that? Like just talking and being friendly and being people's friend, I thought that's what I'm good at that, but I don't know what that means. And so I just started becoming more curious and accepting where I am and going, none of this has anything to do with who I am on the inside. Like I went to an event for Chanel for Sofia Coppola at at MoMA, and I remember before I went, I was like getting ready in my studio apartment to go to this thing where, all these famous people were going to be at. And I was just like, why am I going? And then I had to sit, and then I talked to a friend of mine and he's like, because you were invited. Like, that's it. You were invited to go. Somebody there that invited you wants to spend time with you. Like, you deserve to be there. And it clicked, and my brain was just like, I thought I wasn't good enough to be at these things anymore because I don't have a series on, or I don't have a movie coming out, or whatever it is. And it's like, why don't you just go and just see what happens? Like, let's just be curious. Just go and show up as that person's friend. That's why you were invited, because that person likes being around you. And so when I changed that perspective out of curiosity, I had like the best time that night. And it was just really spectacular. And so I've had to, it's a daily thing. I have to remind myself to do that. And so I don't think it was one certain event that was the hardest for me. I think it was the lack of acceptance I had for so many years that made my suffering so much worse than it needed to be. Or maybe it did need to be that way so I could get to where I am now. I don't know.
We will get you back to this video in just 1 second, but first, did you know that I offer one-on-one coaching? That's right. People have been asking me to do it for years, and I finally opened up my book to accept new clients where I can help you transform your life, reinvent yourself, and revamp your mindset. So there's a link below where you can schedule a discovery call because I want to make sure we're the right fit. So click the link, fill out the form, see if we're a good fit, schedule a call, and I look forward to hearing from you. Now back to the show. I want to dive more into this identity and self-esteem piece. It's fascinating to me. I don't know if you know Adrian Grenier, but I had him on the podcast years ago. I was a huge Entourage fan growing up, and I was like, cool, so cool to me to talk to Vinny Chase. But I wanted to talk to him about, like, if he ever had an issue, like morphing into that character and being quote unquote Vinny Chase and not Adrian. And he opened up and he shared, like, yeah, that filled a part of me that was missing. And it got him into trouble. And I think the woman he's married to now, like, she gave him a list, like, hey, you need to fix these things or I'm done. He fixed them, and now they're married, and he's doing a lot to give back in things that he's passionate about. And so I bring that up. Did you ever have like an issue with that, where your acting career was like influenced your self-esteem, or you had trouble with your identity with, Jaimie, the actress, versus like the Jaimie, behind closed doors?
Yeah, I mean, I remember somebody telling me, be careful when you're on a series because you're going to spend most of your days as someone else, and you can start to take on that, at least the physical feeling of being that character. And for me, I wasn't playing somebody that was happy-go-lucky. I was playing somebody who every day the world was ending, and then there was gunfire every day and screaming and yelling and people with fake wounds all over their body. I mean, it started to screw with my head for sure. I remember having nightmares in the beginning of season 1. Also, I was being injured repeatedly, and I had some issues with my skin and the tattoos that was really painful. And so it was like kind of this weird integration of basically my softer side disappeared completely. And I became a very hard shell of myself. I was still, not meaning I was mean or anything like that. I was always nice. I think that's just kind of who I am. But I was very like harsh. And it was like, almost like became a man in a way, in that sense of being like what we think a stereotypical guy is like, because I had to be this soldier every day at work, and I had to wear the gear that was super heavy, and I had to shoot all the guns, and like I had to run and like tackle people and fight people. And, so that part screwed with me a little bit, which I didn't realize at the time. And then when I got sober, I realized, like, I'm too gentle for this. Like, this is too much for me. I don't want to, I don't want to do this every day. Like, this hurts, like, and so I started putting my focus on the other people at work, and, being goofy between scenes, and, making plans to like go somewhere on the weekend together, and, get a group of girls together and hang out or whatever. But it did kind of affect my life in the way that, I think when Blindspot first came out, I didn't really get to enjoy the popularity of the show because I was always at work. I hardly ever got to promote it because they would not let me take a break to go do that. So I think I did one late night show for the whole show, which is probably why later on in the series it didn't do so well. Like, people lost interest because they just weren't promoting it. They'd be like, oh, it's back on air, and people would be like, but where, like what time? And we would move to a different night and a different time slot. And it was just like that kind of stuff, I sort of missed out on the magic of the beginning where I think my face was everywhere. I was told I was like in, Jumbotron in Times Square and all this stuff. And I thought, oh, that's so weird. And I think part of me, there was something inside of me that just knew, don't get caught up in that crap. Like I just knew. I was like, that's not me, that's Jane Doe. Like I'm the actor, but like the tats and everything and the fighting and stuff, like I'm doing those things, but it's being cut together to be far more extraordinary than what was actually taking place in the scene as we did it. And so I was able to step away from that because the other thing I did, and I still do, is I never watch anything I'm in. So I've never seen. I've seen. I had to sit through the first Thor film because I didn't know I could leave. when when we went down the red carpet, like we all went into, and we were all kids back then, and we just went and we sat in the movie theater with everybody because we were like, we're not allowed to leave. But I just would look at the ground, and I think I remember plugging my ears when I came on to the screen, so I didn't hear my voice. It just made me really uncomfortable. And then occasionally we'll have to dub our lines if something on the track gets, interrupted. And so I would see those little parts. But I think for me, I was always worried that I would I would put myself down if I watched stuff I was in. And there's the flip side of that is like, I never wanted to be real high on myself either. I didn't want this, I didn't want my ego to fluctuate either way. And so I was able to keep myself safe from that. But there's also a part of me that thought, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve all the money you're making. You don't deserve the fame or whatever. Like, and that's different now because I can see that, I think my main goal wasn't everybody loved me and I'm going to be famous or whatever. It was more like, I need to be famous because then people will pay attention to the charities that I pay attention to or work with, or they'll listen to what I have to say when I'm trying to help somebody. It was always like acting was always the catalyst to try to build a platform where people would be interested in what I care about. And so like I didn't really, I never did drugs. I'm really lucky. I never went down that path. But I think it was a lot for me. Like it was a lot for my sensitive soul to receive. And I always thought I was letting people down in person because I play these extraordinarily tough, larger than life characters. And I'm quite simple and shy and introverted. And like, yeah, I just thought like, oh gosh, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to wrap that up, Doug. I was just, yeah, that's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. Hmm.
Yeah, I brought that up because I think that like you talked about like your identity as an actress and like how do you let that go? Like if you're so used to like being that person and then like you had to like learn these healing tactics or face yourself. And I'm curious, like you mentioned, like so like a lot of people they're in the hallway right now or they've been in the hallway and like they're so afraid of moving forward because of the fear that exists. Like I know that you were scared to accept the fact that your identity as an actress was everything was changing. Like what was the hardest thing about that situation to accept for you?
Oh, my self-judgment. Like the thing that was, listen, nobody outside of myself is looking at me being like, you're not good enough or you don't belong here. No one is thinking that. I mean, they're probably just thinking about themselves. I mean, let's face it, that's kind of how we are, right? But I was the problem. Like I was the one that was putting myself down, going, you're not getting work because you're not talented, or you're too old now, or you don't look like everybody else, so you're not going to get a job. You're a has-been. These are things that are not being told to me by executives and other people. Like it literally, like this was me doing this to myself, and I was looking externally at everything going on, and it was validating how shitty I felt about myself. I was like, well, you lost your home and now you don't have this, and now you gave away this, and now what if people find out that you live in a little studio apartment? They're going to think you're a failure, and all this stuff. I'm like, no, like, the only person I should give two shits about their thoughts is my own. And I thought, what if that's not true? What if you aren't a failure? Or what if you're not any of those crappy things that you keep saying to yourself? And I thought, yeah, what if? Um, and so I started looking at a different perspective and going like, none of my life has been by accident. I mean, even the way I became an actress was crazy. Like it just like I got kicked out of drama class in high school. Like I got booted from it because I can't sing, and all we did was musicals. I became a wrestler in high school. I signed up for a competition with a friend of mine in Dallas. Like it was like this little scouting thing. And then when I realized you had to pay like almost $1,000, I was like, I can't do it. I don't have that kind of money, you know? And my friend signed up anyway. I went to like one or two rehearsals with her, and she ended up getting violently sick right before the competition, and I had to take her place. And in the audience happened to be a very famous manager at the time because his wife's best friend went into labor, so he took her spot. I mean, that's the way I had to go back in my life and go, hold on a second. One, you've survived 100% of everything that's ever happened to you. So what makes you think that you can't survive this? And also, what makes you think that this isn't going to be useful? Because if I look at how my life has played out, I like I'm a weird trajectory. Like I realize like I cannot seem to miss what's meant for me. Like you know, like I really can't. And so that's what I did, right? I took a look at how my life has been. I started to get more in touch with who I am as a person. Like why am I afraid of this, right? I'm afraid, oh, I can't take care of my family members financially. That was the biggest fear. Oh, I'm like, you know, I don't know what I thought. Maybe that I was going to be homeless and destitute. And it's like, no, you are physically able to have a job, whether that's, you know, working at a bar or whatever, who cares? Like you're able to take care of yourself. So, okay, that fear is gone. Then it was like, oh, you're afraid of what you're going to come across like in the public. Well, let's write about that. Like put it out there anyway. What's the worst that can happen? I look at my life like it's a science experiment, and I'm the scientist. It's like, I just want to see, I'm going to look for validation of how shitty I feel. I'm going to actually see if it exists externally. And you know what? It doesn't. It hasn't. And that right there changed how I started feeling about myself and who I wanted to be. And I'm starting to get more in touch with those inner gifts that I knew were in me, right? Like talking to people, helping people, inspiring them, or making sure that they can see that they matter. You know, those are the things that I was good at. And those are the things I love to do. And once I just got out of my own way and used myself as the first experiment, right? Like the first practice dummy. I realized like, what if I could help other people do this for themselves? Because like each of us is so capable of so much. Like I think we really put ourselves in a teeny tiny box because it's safe and you know whatever. But man, when all that stuff in the box is gone, you got to get out of the box. Like you have to start looking at other avenues in the neighborhood, and it's that is so I'm in the middle of that right now. I haven't figured it all out, and that's kind of what I'm doing in real time with everybody else. You know. Um,
Yeah,
hmm.
it's really interesting to hear your perspective, and I think it's again, it's cool that you're able to look at things objectively because a lot of times, like in these situations, you know, people don't see these lessons until the other side of it. Like I surely didn't. Like, and you know, it was
Yeah.
took years for me to like look back and put some of the pieces to the puzzle back together. Right after getting through adversity, like what helps you stay grounded now, like so that you're not moving backwards and that you're not self sabotaging. Like, what does your routine look like for you to like practice self care and self love and help keep your self esteem as high as it can be?
It's ever changing. But right now, I wake up in the morning and I write down. I use half a page of a journal and write down the things that I'm grateful for, no matter how I'm feeling or how sad or angry or hurt or whatever I am. I will find that it literally could be that I'm grateful I can have a cup of coffee in my house, or it could literally be like, oh, I have pillows on my bed. That's so nice, you know. So they can be very basic. And what that does is it puts my brain on a path where I'm focused primarily on what's working, what's going well. It doesn't mean I don't look at the stuff that's not going well. It just means like, hey, there's also this, you know, there's also these good things too. And they can both exist at the same time. And then I read usually some sort of passage from a Stoic like Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus or Seneca, and I sort of keep that as an intention throughout the day or a lesson. And then if I get hit with really feeling low, right, like worried, like oh my gosh, all of a sudden financial insecurity creeps up, or oh, impending doom, or like something bad or whatever, I will do this thing that I actually really enjoy. There's a lot of things. I can take a bath, I can read a book, I can call a friend, I can go hang out with some sober people and discuss that. I can, you know, all those things, volunteer, at Bowery Mission, do whatever. But what I started to do when I really get low is I will get on the bus in Manhattan. I love the bus. And because I didn't grow up with like trains and buses and stuff, so I'm like obsessed. But I'll go to the bus and I'll get on there and I will tell myself, find 10 moments of love out the window. Look out the window and just find 10 moments. And you're not allowed to get off the bus until you do. And sometimes like I got to ride all the way up to Harlem because like I'm not, I'm seeing a lot of devastation and anger and whatever. But what that does then also, not just did I do a gratitude list on paper, but I visually witness that no matter what's happening in the world right now, no matter how bad I might be feeling, there's still so much love out there. And I'll see something like I wrote them down in my Substack the other day, but like I will see like a dad like buttoning his daughter's coat, and making her laugh because he's like kind of tickling her at the same time, and that's so loving because he's keeping his child warm, and then I'll see, somebody feeding a homeless person, and then I'll see two people. This happened the other day where these two people, like I was stopped on the bus and I was looking out like towards the left. It was like, I think what bus did I take? I think it was Madison Avenue or Fifth Avenue. Anyway, I was looking out the window and these two people were on the phone, like they didn't know each other, and they body checked one another because I knew this was going to happen because one was looking down texting, I think. And then they both started laughing, which is not normally. You'd be like, depending what you were reading on your phone, you might be really agitated, but they started laughing and one of them dropped their phone and the other one picked it up and they were giggling and then they just carried on walking past each other. And I was like, that is like a funny little moment of love that both of them are going to remember the other person's smile for the rest of the day, and so I'll write these down. Sometimes I don't write them down. Sometimes I just, chill on the bus and do my thing. And but I can see it, I can see it in kids that are playing in a park that are like literally going crazy, like outside, like running around, and then the parents are talking to one another, and just like there's all this really beautiful moments of humanity amongst all the other bad things that are happening. Because it's real easy to look out the bus and see people suffering from having to live on the street in the cold, and people yelling at each other, or somebody yelling at their kid for whatever they're doing. And I mean, it's real easy to spot those things. I just try to focus on the good stuff because that for me helps me come out of my own head and also come out of the feeling of devastation I have when I'm overwhelmed by my life or the world in general. And another thing is I just, I started swimming. So I try to exercise as often as I can without overdoing it. But like today, after this podcast, I'm going to go for a swim. And that's all I have to do for the rest of my day today. Like my schedule's pretty light at this time in December. And it's the freedom I have with that. It's like I can choose to isolate. And some days, like I want to stay home, watch movies. But I also know the difference. Like I know I today need to get out and exercise, and I will take the bus to go swimming so I can do my little exercise on there too.
So taking this like one step further, I know that like, you were in this hallway like with trying to transition from your career as an actress. And I think what can be challenging, and I know it was challenging for you, is like your life just continues to shrink, right? So now you don't have the acting stuff, relationship stuff kind of pops up. I know you've lost some friends recently. You've gone through some depressive episodes. Like your life continues to get smaller. Like how do you create separation for yourself and feel good about where you're heading, even though like as you're moving down this hallway, at times your life can start to feel like it's shrinking even more?
Yeah. I think at this point, because I've gone through so much, I'll say loss, right? Like things have been removed. I am fine. Like I'm still okay. So I've shown myself like, Jaimie, you're capable. And you do have the strength to endure whatever comes next. Doesn't mean that I'm not sad or grieving or hurt. Like the other day, I was really sad. I woke up and I just started crying, and I was like, wow, like this feeling I have, like it just comes from a place of love. Like I wasn't just like, oh God, I don't want to feel this way. I wish I could shut it off. I mean, sure, kind of wish I could sometimes, but that's not an option anymore. Um, but I feel it and I'm like, whoa, this is powerful. This is what we feel, all of us humans, like when we lose somebody we really love, or a friendship breaks up, or a romantic relationship doesn't work out. Like this is the feeling. And then I just I just thought, oh, I love these people. That's why I feel this way. I wouldn't feel this way if I didn't love them. And then I'm like, oh, so I'm capable of love. That's and I don't hate anyone. Like I really don't. Like I just noticed that, like, oh, okay, this is another one of those things that's being removed. I don't know why, but I can either sit and wallow and be upset, and or I can write about it. I have an outlet for this now, or I can maybe call a friend and chat, and just like, whew, this is hard for me, like I don't know how to navigate this yet. This hasn't ever happened to me before, or whatever it is. Um, so I guess I choose action over, you know, not non-action. But as things continue to be pulled out of my life, it's interesting because on paper, if I look around and I think of things that are tangible, everything has gotten a lot less, like a lot smaller. But something inside me has gotten much bigger. It's like my capacity to endure. This is like the only thing I ever pray for, or ever think about, is just while I'm going through something, when it's hard and I feel it, I just say, please give me the strength to endure. I don't pray for something good to happen, or something to be removed, or something to be given to me, because I just don't have control over that. I really don't. I just say, please give me the strength to endure whatever's next. And that sort of helps pull me out of any kind of like misery, self-inflicted misery, or rumination, or any of that stuff. Like I just go, I know I'm a strong person now because I've gotten through all of this. I didn't relapse over it. I didn't, there are things I can look at and go, yeah, okay, this isn't so bad. Like all the crap I was scared about. In fact, like where I live right now, I am the happiest I have ever been. And like to the point where if I get offered another series and make a bunch of money, I probably won't leave this studio apartment. Like I just won't. Like I like being here. I feel really happy. I feel resourceful. I feel green in that way. I feel like everything is quite manageable and it's cozy and I have a beautiful view. And like, I didn't know that I would feel this way. I thought what kept me safe was having a bunch of money in the bank and having different properties so that I always have somewhere to live. And these are normal things, right? Like to want for oneself. But I also always thought if I have this specific friend, I can survive anything. If I have this specific whatever. And then it's like something out there is like, I'm going to show you that even without those things, you are safe. You are capable of keeping yourself safe. You are capable of doing anything you want to do. And you don't need all the stuff externally to make those things happen. Those are just bonuses. You can't take that when you die. You just can't. I remember feeling that way in the hospital. I did not think of one thing. I didn't think of my TV show. I didn't think of anything other than how much love I felt. It was so big. I just was thinking about everybody. Like I loved everybody. I remember, actually, I forgot this part. I remember telling the doctors how much I loved them when I was being taken from that room to the OR. I was just like, oh my God, you guys, like I was so thrilled and excited, like almost like, oh my God, almost like It's a Wonderful Life, like how Jimmy Stewart like portrayed that, where he was like just like ecstatic. It was kind of like, yeah, I had that switch flip in my brain of going like, whoa, this is great. Like I'm gonna suffer for sure. Like that's part of being a human. But I almost like look at it now, um, and I kind of say like in a really loving way, like, okay, what's next? Like what else? What else are you gonna try? Like it's I've said before, like life is like a big ocean, and we're surfers with our surfboard, and the waves are going to knock us down, but the ocean also helps us get back up on the surfboard, and it's like there's a buoyancy there, and so that's life on life's terms for me. It's just like I will always get back up on that surfboard, and I'll have those moments where I can be on the surfboard and ride the wave and feel effortless. And then there are going to be moments where I get knocked back into the ocean and I see all the other stuff in the ocean, and then I go, okay, it's not so bad down here. And then I'll get back up again and keep surfing.
Perspective is so important, and like it's so cool that you've like found the silver lining in this. And one of the things that really changed my trajectory and my healing process was um, Tony Robbins said something. I saw him say something like, if you're going to blame people for the bad, you better blame them for the good. And he talked about like his abusive childhood, and he talked about like all the stuff he went through and how that's led to him being more compassionate and understanding the human experience and helping other people. And it seems like that's kind of in a similar way what's happened with you. Like a lot of the trauma that you've gone through has helped shape you into this compassionate human where now you're able to like share this message. Like, do you feel like some sense of relief after, posting on your Substack, that it's been like almost, therapeutic for you and helping other people?
Yeah, I feel like a mixture of I feel a mixture of like immense gratitude, because sometimes I notice like the only thing actually is funny. I don't watch myself, and I don't know if I'll listen to my podcast. I think I might get a little self-conscious because sometimes when I'm speaking, I notice it happens when I'm writing. It doesn't feel like it's just coming from me. I don't know if that's too woo-woo for everybody, but it's just how I feel. I'll be like, I should practice that. I'll say something and go, man, I got to write that one down. I should actually practice that more. I'm like, where did that come from? But when I put something out there in the article, like, because I'm being so transparent, and that's why in the last article, I actually took a photo of myself once I stopped crying, and I thought, this is so dramatic. Don't post this. Or I just felt really like self-conscious. And I thought, no, actually, like I said, I would be transparent and do things in the moment as they happen. And this is like exactly what I was feeling and what I looked like as I wrote that article. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with this. And, you know, whatever. So I put it out there. And so there's a freedom that I feel once I've posted something on the Substack, or once I've talked to somebody like yourself, and it happens in little moments too, which are not so little, right? Like I can walk down the street and wait for the bus and have a full conversation with the person standing there and be like, wow, I wonder if I'll ever see this person again, And so I think the reason I've started feeling a release and a freedom is because I am actually being myself. I'm not being like the actress girl on a red carpet. And if I go on a red carpet, I might dress up. That's sometimes it's what I got to do. But my primary focus will be how many people can I chat to on this carpet, and like how many people can I talk with, and like I'm genuinely curious about how people are doing. Because if I felt this way, I think about like all of us, right? Every person living right now has survived 100% of everything that's happened to them. And as humans, man, we go through a lot. Like it's all relative. I don't compare suffering ever, because it's all relative, and we've all suffered a lot. We've all lost things. We've also gained things. We've all felt low self-esteem and not worthy enough. And we've all felt like at times we don't matter. And we've all been hurt by another person, and we've potentially hurt another person as well. And so I think about all these things and I go, I gotta know. Like I want to talk to more people and be like, what have you been through? Like what are you doing right now? And what do you like? And like I'm so inquisitive. It's really funny, Doug, because I noticed on a podcast, it's hard for me to ask questions when somebody's asking me questions the whole time. But I'm actually really like, I would like to know a lot more about you. Like I read a little bit, but I didn't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. Because like I just am so interested. Like you have this platform and you have this space where you can chat with people, and you talk about real things, like it's not just um what was your experience like, working with Anthony Hopkins? Like that's a really cool story too, that I have. But you seem to be really interested in people on a much deeper level, and I think that's really incredible. And so, yeah, at some point I need to know more about you. I'd like to chat with you more.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of it for me, it just comes from my story and what I went through. I grew up very insecure, low self-esteem, was picked on a lot as a kid. Went through some adversity. My parents got divorced, and, I didn't have like the greatest relationship with myself or other people. And I was a guy that loved sports, but never made the teams. And so I had this identity that was like, what's wrong with me? Or, why me? I'm not good enough. And started to gain like fat when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. And I was like different from other kids. And I was like, why am I so different? And that led to me, essentially getting addicted to drugs. And that started with weed. And then like that progressed into Coke, and that led to Oxy. And then, I got to the point where I was snorting like hundreds of milligrams of Oxycontin up my nose every single day, along with the fact that I was selling a lot of drugs to support that habit and to make money. End up getting arrested on Cinco de Mayo of 2008 with a bunch of weed and money, charged with a felony, go to jail. I get sentenced. The judge is like, "Hey, Doug, you're young. You're 20 years old. This conviction is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Like, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to sentence you to 5 years in jail, suspend everything but 90 days, give you 5 years of probation, a couple hundred hours of community service, and all kinds of like fines and stuff." But he's like, "If you complete everything I ask you to do, like, I'll take the conviction off of your record at the end of the 5 years and give you a PBJ." And at that time, I was high in court. I was like, "There's no way I'm going to live to see my 25th birthday." Um, he was like, "Take the deal. Like, I don't know what other choice you have." So I did. Reported to jail a few weeks later, back to jail, which was a week after my 21st birthday, and detoxed cold turkey from Oxy for weeks in jail.
Mm.
My cellmate got me into fitness, and I had never I was never good at exercising, let's put it that way. And he got me to like look at myself in the mirror. I had sat there and I was blaming my parents. I was blaming kids for picking on me. I was blaming, girls, like all these things for my problems. And he's like, the PG version is he's like, stop being a victim. He's like, you're blaming
Yeah.
everybody else for your problems but yourself. He's like, you chose to get yourself into jail. Like, there's a lot of people who grew up in similar circumstances that aren't in jail. And that got me to
Mm.
exercise. And it started from me not being able to do a push up from my knees to doing a set of 10 push ups and barely being able to walk up and down the steps to running a mile in jail. And then got out, lost a bunch of weight. And I still have like there's a frame that's my workout plan that my cellmate gave me the day I left jail, because I never wanted to forget where I came from. And then built a very successful career in the training space. And I started to share my story, and I started to like get honest with people and help other people. And got on podcasts. The Today Show ended up doing like a documentary on my story. And I guess through all of that, that's like the very brief highlight reel. That was like the catalyst for what the show of The Adversity Advantage. Because for me, I knew that when I went through adversity as a kid, I did everything I could to make my adversity worse. And even like in my early adult years, like, when I was 18, 19, 20, I made it a lot worse than it needed to be. And then in the thickest moment of adversity, I found advantage in that in jail, like, which is like the kind of like the weirdest possible thing, right? And then through that, I was able to change my life. And I was like, how can I help people course correct? How can I, get deep into people's stories like yourself, and understand like your backstory, and more about like, what you're going through, not just to like help give you a platform and like connect and like help you inspire people, because people they struggle, and they struggle in the thick of adversity in that hallway. And they're like, well, like, how do I get through this? Like, what's the real stuff? Because if you peel it back, it's like, even, in talking to people in the entertainment space, it's like, we're all the same, except your job is very public. You know what I mean? Like, there's a scorecard that comes with your job that's based on like what you're in, how many people are searching for you on Google, like all that stuff is very public, where people who maybe aren't in that space, it's very private, but we all have the same problems, like
Yeah.
it's just, so I guess that's a very roundabout way of like, that's what my backstory, and why, I'm so passionate about mental health and helping people with, addiction and stuff like that, because I understand the pain of hating myself. I understand the pain of not having hope and thinking that things were going to end a certain way, to now coming out on the other side and being like, oh my gosh, like the beauty that has come with the pain I've overcome in my life, and the strength that's come from that, is something that is irreplaceable. There's no amount of money, fame, nothing that can buy that. Like, it requires the work, but once you get through it, like, the benefits are just so therapeutic and amazing.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, one of the like, there's a lot in there. Actually, maybe we'll listen to this part. Like, I scoot down and I'll listen to this part of everything you just said, because It's case in point, like I was saying, the worst things that have happened to me in my life have ended up becoming, by my choice, right? The best things that could have ever happened. So that's a hard thing for me to say. That's a heavy thing for me to say when I haven't really spoken openly about all the abuse I suffered as a kid in different ways. Um, so for me to say that is like, it's taken me a while to get there, but I thought, no, 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 like because of that. I can either let that, like, I used to blame, like you said, I used to blame that trauma as a kid on why I drank so much. Like, I would just be like, I just had it was this and that. And like, and then what would happen was I'd be in therapy and I'd be talking about it and I would make the therapist cry. Like they would feel that bad. They were like, this is one of I had a couple people, therapists say, this is one of the worst stories I've ever heard. And so it validated it, right? In this weird way. That's not what they meant to do, obviously, but it made me go, yeah, my life. Ooh, let me drink. Um, but then I thought about it and I've done a lot of work in Africa and I look at the folks there and they have had things happen that are far worse than what I've been through and they're not drinking even though they have access, right? They're not doing drugs, they're not doing any of that. So I thought, no, so that's not what made me an alcoholic then. It's the way that I chose to process certain things. And so uh once you are aware that there's a different way, if there's these moments of grace, like you can choose to do things differently. Doesn't mean it's going to be easier, but it's a lot better. And what I heard from you was, that judge, I was about to say, and I've said this before, but it's your proof again is that I'm so happy that life is not fair. Because if life were fair, you would have been in jail for a lot longer. If life were fair, I would be dead for sure. There's no way I would have survived sepsis. If like the algorithm of life worked, with, 2 + 2 = 4, like, life would be kind of interesting. It would be pretty rough and pretty boring. And like a lot of us wouldn't have any kind of grace in our life for sure. But I find that because life isn't fair, it leaves room for miracles, right? Because if it were fair, there would be no use for miracles. And so your story is pretty miraculous, right? Like there was this judge that saw something in you that was like, I got to give this kid a shot. Like I'm going to give this kid a shot. It's up to him if he takes it, but he felt so compelled to do that for you. But he gave you enough punishment to make sure that you knew you had to be accountable for your actions, right? But what what an awesome thing. And the fact that you were with a cellmate who, you know, took time, I guess. I mean, I don't know much about this fella, but like was like, hey, I'm gonna show you how to work out. I'm gonna show you how to do this. Like, let's put that energy into something else. And then that you took that and you took that grace and then you used it. Like, you started probably feeling like or like you have a purpose. And that's the thing is like your mission that I can see is like making sure everybody knows that they matter. And that's that resonates with me because that's what I'm trying to do as well. It's like I figured it out and so did you. And it's like it's a process, but it's important for each person. And listen, if you're listening to this and you're going through hell and you're going through really tough stuff and it seems like it's never going to end because it has been the same way for years or whatever, try and look at it from a different lens. Like just try a different lens. Doesn't mean you got to stay there. Doesn't mean you have to, none of that. Like you can keep, in the spiral if you want, but what that'll do is just show you that you're capable of actions that can lead somewhere, and they can be very small actions. um, nothing gets created instantly, and everything's a process, but like you're worth it. So because you're worth it, try a different lens, look through a different lens, see what you can do. See that, Viktor Frankl, for instance, is a huge inspiration of mine. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, is probably one of the greatest books I have ever read in my life. Um, and I highly recommend it to anybody that's interested. But he chose to take his adversity and he chose to make it mean something. He's like, I got two options, right? Like I can either die here in this camp or I can use it as an experiment. Like I can use my own self and the things that I'm witnessing. And it's what he did for a living before he was in the camps, and he's like, doesn't they can't take that from me. They can take everything else, but they're not going to take my freedom of choice. They can't do that. And I thought that was so powerful. And so everybody, I hope you know that, like, no one can take your freedom of choice, meaning how you view whatever is happening in that moment. They cannot take that from you. You're the only person that can operate that. Like, it's, you have a choice of how you respond to whatever's happening.
Yeah, it's that book is one of my favorite books of all time. It's such a great book and highly recommend it. And I'm really thankful that the judge, followed through, and he ended up taking the felony off my record. And Eric was my cellmate. He's since passed, but talk about like the power of sharing your story. I had Eric had died, and his mom had reached out and let me know that he died, and I had gotten a message. I don't know if it was from a cousin or somebody in his family was like, hey, you don't know me, but I'm related to Eric by such and such way. Like, I wanted to thank you because I just started to go through like his friends, and I saw you, and I would see like you sharing these podcast episodes, and I would hear you tell the story of how he changed your life, and it was really like been meaningful because now we remember, like, helps us remember like the good side of him or whatever. And ended up getting invited to speak at his funeral and being able to tell the story of how he saved my life. And so you just never know like the power of sharing your story and like where that leads. And something you brought up that I think is really important to touch on is we create these sob stories in our mind that frankly are true, can be very true and very hard and very tough, that we continue to play that tape over and over again, and then we can make choices based off of that story. Like, I chose to use drugs because of how bad I thought my life was years prior, right? And because I had now played that tape and then convinced other people that my life was bad, and I was like, so then I can just kind of pass the buck of responsibility off of me to someone else. And now, like, cool, like anything I do now, I can just pick, oh, it's because of when I was like 9, this happened, right? Um, which is, I think it's obviously there's validity there because like people's lives are very bad and people are trying to survive and feel good. But the problem becomes then it can trap you from moving forward in making those choices to change your life.
Right. Like, if you let it, it'll hijack your life. And I think, um, you know, we have choices, and just because, like, you've made mistakes, you'll continue to make mistakes. Everybody does, right? That is literally how you figure out who the are, and like what my mistakes have led me to this point. And you know, I like myself. Like, I didn't used to, but I do now. And I realize, like, that's just part of being human, and I think that's so amazing that you got asked to speak at that man's funeral. And it is important to know that, like, there's a seed of good in everyone. That's what I believe. And someone's like, that ripple effect that he's had on you, and then now the cousin had reached out to you, and your ripple effect is huge, and he's a part of it. And so we're all part of each other's stories. Like, sometimes I always think about this. I'm like, when things don't go my way, like, sometimes I have to be like, what is the point of this happening? I'll be like I can't see a point to, certain things. Like, when I trip and fall on the sidewalk in front of everybody, I'm like, not sure what the point of that was. Other than maybe like just a little extra humility. I'm not sure. But I think about it and I'm like, sometimes we're around and things happen so that we facilitate something else for someone else. Like, I think about the parts that I didn't get, that I really loved. And it was like such a bummer for me, right? But it was such an amazing thing for the person who got it. And it's like, me not getting it, okay, but like, I was a player in that person's life story, basically. Like, I was part of the competition, and that person got the part. And it's like that I had a ripple effect that I didn't even realize, right? And that's like a very plain example, but it's true. It's like, when certain things happen, somebody that saw me fall on the sidewalk, maybe it prevented them from tripping later and breaking their arm. I have no idea. Like, or maybe it made somebody laugh that's having a bad day. Who knows, right? It could have facilitated all these things. I have no clue. It's not my job to know, right? It's just my job to show up and take it in stride. And so it's made it easier for me to not judge certain things that happen. Like, I just have to be like, I don't know why this is happening, and that's okay. Like, I'll learn why later. I don't have to know it right now. I just have to stay as present as possible. And that's the other thing that's helped me. I should mention is like, if I start thinking about tomorrow or next week or specifically next year, I will go into a fear spiral. Like I will literally, I call it future tripping. Like I don't need to take a trip there. That hopefully will happen. Like I'll stay alive, for a little bit longer, but I don't need to go there right now. That doesn't exist. And most of what I create in my mind is not going to happen. Like it's a stoicism concept of like we suffer more in our imagination than reality, and that's so true. And so I try to stay as present as possible, and that can be like, I learned this from Eckhart Tolle. It was just like I will turn the faucet on freezing cold and stick my hands in it, and then I'll just be like, this is what's real right now. I'm standing in front of a sink. I'm a little silly at the moment, but I'm feeling cold water on my hands, and that is like, that's it for that moment. It's like nothing else is really happening around me right now. I'm just doing this. And it sort of brings me back to going, if I just, because like I said, I went to work one day and almost died. I had no idea that that was coming, or that I would get sober, or that like you just never know what's going to happen to you when you wake up in the morning. And so if you stay curious, good, bad, whatever, but if you just stay curious, you'll start to notice things around you that are like really special or really interesting. Or, it's almost like when you're reading a good book and you just want to know like what happens next. That's your life. So if you let go of what you think is going to happen and you just stay curious, you're going to start noticing a lot of cool little things that pop up. And that's been my experience. And so especially when I'm down and out and I'm not feeling good or something doesn't go my way, I just go, just stay curious. Remember, because every time I've stayed curious, something I start to understand what's going on, and it's easier for me to accept it.
So I'd imagine, like, as we're kind of like nearing the end of our conversation, like all of this, like of what you've went through, it seems like that moment where you almost died was probably like the worst thing, I would imagine, right? And I think that, we've been talking about this in the hallway theme, that when people are like in the thick of it, all they want to know is that things are going to be okay.
Yes. Mm.
Like, what would you tell that person, like if you could talk to her?
Oh God, this makes me want to cry because I have been there so many times where the uncertainty is so afraid, like it's so scary because all of a sudden for me, especially like these friendships that have been, leaving my life, almost like instantly, it's so bizarre. I start to think I'm so alone, like I'm so alone, and like, what if I encounter something so horrible? I don't have anybody I can count on. Like, and these are old childhood things that aren't real, right? For now, because one of my favorite quotes is by Carl Jung. Like, I am not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to become. And I just want everybody to know that like the uncertainty doesn't have to be a big dark cloud. It could be the best thing in the world. You have no idea what's next. And so for better or for worse, like you just stay in your present moment. Just do what you can for right now. That might be, if you're thirsty, just have a sip of water. Like do what you can right now, and don't, if you can, try not to feel shameful about how awful you feel or how sad you are or how devastated or lonely you feel, and just know that like there are millions of people that feel that way too. You're not by yourself. Like you're never alone. You will have people that will come into your life and they will help you and they will leave, and some will stay, and you will help somebody else. And so a lot of times when I get trapped into that fear of like I don't know what's going to happen next, like some of the things that help me is I sit down and I realize like I'm not by myself in this. I don't know what's going to happen next. So that could leave room for some really amazing possibilities. It's not all bad. Like I just chose to look at like, oh God, the uncertainty, that's a bad thing. It's like, no, that's the hallway full of doors. That is like possibilities, endless ones, like something even greater than you could even think of. So when you remain curious and you just sit with yourself and perhaps help another person, like that gets me out of my head and really puts things into perspective and makes me feel like I did something good that day, and I took a good action. I don't have the cure for the uncertainty. I think the only antidote really is curiosity. Just stay curious. Like you don't know the answers, but something out there does, and you will have the strength to endure. You really will. You just have to believe that you are capable. Look at everything you've already been through.
Jaimie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for being so vulnerable and sharing so much. Really appreciate it. We'll definitely link your Substack in the show notes. If people want to connect with you and learn more about like your Substack and what you're doing, where's the best place to do that?
Instagram. I don't really know how to use any of the other platforms very well. So I'd say like my Instagram, which is just my name.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much once again for coming on the pod.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Growing up, I was active, but not super active. I played soccer coming of age. It was big in my hometown. But by the time I made it to high school, after playing on the volleyball team my freshman year, I didn't make the JV squad because I couldn't run a mile in under 10 minutes. And that unfortunate